thrive in the business jungle.
Welcome to Digital Leadership Lessons from Survival Training, the podcast where we show that true leadership doesn't start in the conference room, but where things get uncomfortable. In today's session, I introduce you to the rule of 3 for survival, what leaders can learn from nature. I'm Florian Kneubühl, project and program manager, survival trainer, and someone who believes that those who survive outside understand how to lead inside. Three minutes without air. 3 hours without shelter. 3 days without water. 3 weeks without food. That's the rule of 3 for survival. It shows us what really matters when everything else collapses. But this rule doesn't just apply out in the woods. It also applies in business, in organizations, in leadership. Because that's where people struggle too. Sometimes for the survival of their teams, their projects, or their companies. When you're out in the wilderness, you learn humility. You learn that you have no right to control. Nature lets you survive or not. And it tests whether you have understood what is really important. Air, shelter, water, food. Air, comparable to communication and clarity. Shelter, comparable to trust and security. Water, comparable to information and orientation. Food, comparable to meaning and vision. If one of these is missing, the system collapses. And that is exactly what happened in business. I remember my time at a large financial institution, a traditional Swiss bank, strong, proud, globally networked. But in the last few years before it fell, it had long since broken down internally. Down in the teams, in the projects, in IT, in day-to-day business, you could sense for a long time that something was wrong. You never knew what was being decided at the top. Strategies came as PowerPoint packages, not as dialogue. There was no air. Communication was replaced by emails, information by rumors, and trust by fear. Many good people tried to do their jobs anyway, but without direction, without clear goal, even the best team becomes a ship without a compass. At some point, no one knew which course to follow anymore. The protective layer, trust, was gone. Instead of mutual support, there were silos, self-interest, political games. And the water, i.e. information and guidance, seeped away into the hierarchies. In the end, all that remained was the last thing that drives people in crisis: meaning. But even that was lost. The vision, the why, it was just a facade. And then came what had to come. The system collapsed. Not because the product was bad, not because people were incompetent, but because the survival system was disrupted. Insight. This story shows it is never the laws of nature that fail. It is the people who ignore them. In the wilderness, you die if you disregard the rule of 3. The same thing happens in business, only more quietly, more slowly, and often only when it's too late. We live in a time full of buzzwords: customer first, agile, resilient, empowerment. Beautiful words that often seem like marketing perfume. But words are not air. If they are not breathed, not lived, They suffocate teams just as they suffocate people in a closed room. Business transfer. The rule of 3 reminds us that survival in the jungle, as in a corporation, depends on priorities. AIR stands for communication and clarity. When information does not flow and people are not heard, panic and stagnation arise. Protection stands for trust and security. When employees are afraid of making mistakes, they stop thinking. Water stands for orientation. Without clear direction, teams lose energy in meetings without ever making progress. Food stands for meaning. Only those who know what they are fighting for can keep going in difficult times. Nature knows no PowerPoint strategy. It knows only adaptation, and that only works when all the senses are open. Recommended action. When you lead, think like a survivor in a storm. Keep the flow of information going. Breathe together. Offer protection before you demand performance. Provide guidance even if the map is incomplete. Nurture meaning so that energy remains even in lean times. Leadership is not a theory. Leadership is survival management on a human, not a technical level. Reflection. Ask yourself, where is there a lack of air in your environment? Where is there mistrust? Where is the flow of information drying up? And where is there a lack of meaning that really drives people forward? Because these are not just questions for survival. They are questions for sustainable leadership. That was the episode about the rule of 3 for survival and why it is perhaps the most honest leadership compass you can find. The next episode will be about how to stay on course in the fog, about orientation in uncertain times. Until then, stay alert, stay courageous, and don't forget, survive the wilderness, thrive in the business jungle.
Thrive in the business jungle.